The 10 working principles for a healthy society. You're the only you in the history of the world. And I guess with that, I think comes some responsibility to be the best you that you can be. So if you're not really interested in making change, then you don't need to listen to this right now. Come back to it sometime when you do want to make a change, or tell somebody that does want to make a change to listen to it. But if you want to be a better you, then you do want to listen to this. And I can tell you right now, a simple test to determine whether you're ready for change or not, because there are 4 stages for readiness and change. 4 stages for readiness with regard to change. Stage number 1 is when you're doing it because some authority makes you do it. You get in a fight and you get arrested for disturbing the peace. So you go to court and the court says, well, I'm going to order you into a 12-week anger management program. And you're rolling your eyes and, oh, yeah, fine. Beach paying a fine. So, okay, I'll go. What's the chance that somebody in that circumstance is going to really improve their temper? Probably not very good. They're not motivated. They don't want to be there. They can go in there and sit there and cross their arms, lean back in their chair for their hour, 12 weeks in a row. They filled the square, checked the box, they're out of there. They're not motivated to learn. They're not a sponge soaking up information. They're just there because they were ordered to be. Okay, that's stage number 1. Stage number 2 is when you're doing it to please someone else. It's like your spouse wants you to do something. They want you to get more exercise, or they want you to lose weight, or they want you to be less harsh with your family members or something, and so you agree to it. But you're doing it just to make them happy. You don't really think you have a problem, but you agree to it just to make them happy, to get them off of your back. So again, motivation is missing. You're just doing it to please somebody else. Stage 3 is when your heart's not in it, but at least intellectually you know that you need to do it. You don't want to do it, but at least intellectually you know that you need to do it. There's a big difference between wanting to do it and knowing that you need to do it. Maybe you want to, but you don't want to. You wish you did. You wish your heart was in it. And in your head, you know, yeah, it'd probably be better if I did this differently, but I'm just not right now. That's just not on my list of things to do. So in your head, you know it, but in your heart, you're just not really into it. And then there's stage 4. Nobody makes lasting change until they're in stage 4. Stage 4 is when you are ready mentally and emotionally to make a change. Dan Ariely, James B. Duke Professor of Psychology and Behavioral Economics at Duke University and a founding member of the Center for Advanced Hindsight. He does research in behavioral economics on the irrational ways people behave, described in really plain language. His immersive introduction to irrationality took place as he overcame injuries sustained in an explosion. Now, during a range of treatments in the burn department, he faced a variety of irrational behaviors that were immensely painful, yet persistent. He began researching ways to better deliver painful and unavoidable treatments to patients. Now, Ariely became engrossed with the idea that we repeatedly and predictably make the wrong decisions in many aspects of our lives, and that research could help change some of these patterns. You really get at the heart of this in such creative ways, and I've been excited to talk about this because the rationality and irrationality of decision-making is so outcome determinative in people's everyday lives. It's outcome determinative in what they have for lunch, where they shop, what they buy, but it's also outcome determinative in terms of their lives, what the sum total of their lives are. And I've said to people that follow me many times that since I was 12 years old, I have been fascinated with why people do what they do and don't do what they don't do. And I've always said, if you understand why people do what they do and don't do what they don't do, you have a huge edge in life in terms of managing your own life and getting other people to do the things that you would want to motivate them to do. You really break that down and get to the heart of it. And I believe that most people think they make decisions when in fact they're having decisions made for them by the advertising machine, the marketing machine, people that make forms. And I really want to get into that and talk about it because you've done such a creative job at breaking it down so people understand it. I don't know, maybe people say, why do you do that? Well, it's just because. It's the way it's always been done. I've talked to people who will do something twice and say, that's just the way we've always done it. You've just done it twice. What are you talking about? But they default to a comfort zone because they've done something once, twice, three times, and they have no idea why. It's just, that's just the way we've always done it. Why do we accept that?
Yeah, so you've basically kind of captured, I think, the basic lesson of social science. And the basic lesson of social science is that when we make decisions, we think they come from us, but they come from the environment. And the thing to understand is that the environment is not really designed to help us make better decisions. So imagine as a metaphor, a person walking down the street. Every coffee shop wants them to buy coffee and a donut. Every app on their phone wants them to spend time on that app right now.
Right.
So we are walking around and other things in our environment want our time, our money, and our attention. And who is there to fight for our long-term wishes? Basically nobody. You know, if you ask the question of who cares about your long-term well-being, maybe it's your significant other. Maybe if you believe in the government, you will say the government. But the reality is that most of life, we are surrounded by other entities that control the environment and therefore change our decisions. So think about something very simple, like you go to the supermarket. And maybe you prepare and you bring a shopping list. And that's your plan of action. But the supermarket also has a plan. And their plan is different than yours. And guess what? They control the environment. They decide what's at the eye level. They decide what's at the end of the aisle. And because of that, we end up making their decisions more often than we would like. So, and you also mentioned this idea that it's not just about science, it's about our personal lives. And one of my hopes is that we would all become scientists of our own lives, right? We're all the architects of our homes, of our kitchens, of our desks. What are the things that we could do to change the environment to get better outcomes? So the design of the environment is crucially important. And you know, you can even think about refrigerators. So actually, can I ask you a few personal questions?
You bet. Go.
Okay. In the last month, have you eaten more than you think you should?
Every day. I'm totally transparent. I'll tell you anything you want to know.
Have you slept less than you think you should?
Every night.
Okay. We can talk about washing hands every time you leave the bathroom. We can talk about taking medications regularly, having safe sex, all of those things. And the reality is that when we look at those, we should all admit that we fail a lot.
Yes.
We fail a lot. And there was this very, very sad study that asked the question of how many people, what percentage of Americans die too early because they've made bad decisions. And the results show that this number is increasing all the time. About 100 years ago, it was less than 10%. Now it's more than 40%.
Wow.
What happened? Are we becoming
because
dumber?
of bad decisions.
That's right. And the question is why? Are we becoming dumber? The answer is no. What is happening is that the environment is becoming better at tempting us.
Dr. Dina Mannion is a celebrated doctor of psychology and licensed clinical social worker since 1993, specializing in substance abuse, depression, anxiety, personality disorders, couple counseling, family therapy, and really just a lot of important areas in psychology and human functioning. Is there a point that you believe we should start teaching these kids how to cope with anxiety, depression, stress, cyberbullying, these issues as part of the curriculum in school?
Definitely. I mean, I think, cognitive behavioral therapy, even though I practice from an eclectic point of view. I believe that cognitive behavioral therapy is the most researched therapy. It's probably the easiest to understand and to put into practice because it's very, systematic in terms of how it works. But to change your thinking about something and not just act on your feeling, but to actually check it, make sure that it's not distorted in some way, hear what some other, possibilities are, and start to really look at, is this just me and the way that I feel? Is this something that, like you said, is something that needs to be pursued and dealt with? And I think that we just need to teach our children how to gain skills to cope with adversity, prejudice, bullying, all of these things, being offended, and that it doesn't make it right, but it teaches them how to cope with it, whether that's making the complaint or whether that's dealing with it, onto themselves, or whether it's addressing it or whatever it is. I think to give them some skills other than just call somebody out on social media and try to get them canceled.
I had the opportunity to testify before a bipartisan committee of Congress on the reauthorization of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act. And it was dealing with, or how to deal with, cyberbullying. One of the things that I heard the administration say is that this is not our job. Our job is to educate these kids at school because cyberbullying is taking place off campus, not on campus. So that's not our job. That's the job of the parent. I said, you need to make it your job because you have access to these kids 40% of their waking hours. Most of these relationships are formed at school, and there was a time when you could leave school and leave the bully behind. The bullying took place on the bus dock, it took place behind the gym, it took place in the cafeteria, and when the student went home, they were safe. Now, the cyberbully can follow them home, and the parent thinks they're back there in their bedroom doing their homework when in fact they're on some chat group or whatever from school with people saying, we hate you, you're ugly, kill yourself. And too often it has happened that they go back there and find their child, boy or girl, 7th or 8th grade, hanging themselves in their closet, dead. I've had many a story that I've had to do on the show where they've shot themselves or hung themselves. And I'll never forget one mother, not 50 feet from here, her son shot himself in the face.
It started with the name calling. Brandon had used a .357 Magnum. When I saw him, the first thought that went through my mind is he looks on the outside now like he has felt on the inside for so long.
These were all kids from school saying terrible things to him on the internet. And I think, again, the schools can help so much if we can teach kids the early warning signs of anxiety, depression, stress, learned helplessness, interpersonal violence. You get these kids in 7th or 8th grade and they get in these relationships and think, oh my God, I'm loved so much because he's calling me 50 times an hour. They don't realize this is early warning signs of abuse here. You need to spot this and recognize it, and how to deal with a bully, how to defuse a bullying situation, bystander responsibilities when there are bullying situations, how to cope with these things. And it's not going to happen in the schools until you put the money behind it so it becomes part of the curriculum. You got to set aside 20 minutes a day 30 minutes a day, 3 days a week, or something like that, to teach them the basic tenets of recognizing these red flags and what to do about it when they see it. Sometimes I've got to give myself what I wish I could get from somebody else. And that's why I like question number 9, because sometimes you look and take stock, and sometimes you need to look at yourself in the mirror and give yourself what you wish you get from somebody else. You got to look in the mirror and say, hey, I'm proud of myself as a father. I'm proud of myself as a husband. I'm proud of myself as a contributing member of society. And if you don't get it where you wish you get it, you got to give it to yourself till you get it from somewhere else.
And you say, Doc, you use a couple of words, decide and choice. That life is filled with a series of decisions and choices. And my mom, when I had about 30 Division I football offers coming out of junior college, and I chose Long Beach State because a good friend of mine lived out here and was going to playing at USC. My sister was living in the Norwalk, Long Beach area, so I decided Long Beach State. And I got here, coming from a little small farming rural community in Kansas. I got here to Long Beach, and boy, there was diversity to the nth degree. And I wasn't comfortable. It was new territory. I wasn't comfortable. 2 weeks go by. I call my mom. I don't know if this is the best fit for me, Mom. Can you get a hold of, at this point, I think it was Coach Snyder's second year at Kansas State. Can you call Coach Snyder and ask him if that full scholarship is still available? I think coming back to Kansas may be what I need. She gave me the best advice that anyone has ever given, and it found its way into the book. She said, you made that choice. Now go about making that choice the right one. So too often we leave to chance and we fret about making the perfect decision, the perfect choice. And there is no such thing. But what we can do is go through our process to make the final call on what the decision is, and every day go about making that choice the right one, outworking everyone around you, taking joy and pride in your work every single day. And if we do that consistently, we'll make the choice right by our hard work and preparation. I think it's simple, and I say this a lot, Doc. I think many of these ideas are very simple. That doesn't mean they're easy. But relatively speaking, they're pretty simple. So how do we do that? How do we make sure that we're leaning into that process in a way that is beneficial, not once again to us individually, but to our social networks and those around us that mean a lot to us?
Well, that's where you learn something about yourself, right? I can't tell you that I'll always make the right decision, but I can tell you that I'll always work to make the decision right.
Whoa, boy. Come on now.
That's what I do know about myself. I may not make the right decision, but I know I'll work my butt off to make the decision right. That's from commitment and hanging in there and, getting up early, staying up late, staying focused. And sometimes I probably haven't made the right decision, but by working hard, I made it right. And
That's right.
Maybe it'd have been an easier road somewhere else. I don't know, because I never switched and went to the other road. You didn't go back to Kansas State.
No. That's that grit and that grind, though. Yeah. Every day, if I hit the floor and I say I'm going to dedicate to grinding forward and move with a level of grit and perseverance that will be unmatched, I'll be okay.